All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bloom. Here. Mrs. Spiritu. Ms. Laird. Here. Mr. Price.
Here.
Mrs. Ray. Here.
All right, Mrs. Spiritu is on vacation this week. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for our special meeting held July 7th, 2022, and our regular meeting held July 11th, 2022, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Ray. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom. Yes. Ms. Laird. Yes. Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. I didn't see any walk-on items tonight.
Sir.
Okay, legislative report. Ms. Laird.
Okay, what I've prepared for you this evening is what has the legislative response been to the school shootings? We have a federal level response in legislation. We have a state level response in legislation. And I thought we'd open it up at the end then in Mr. Detweiler's report to talk about his recommendations for a local response and how we manage the tragedies that we've had on hand. So first, at the federal level, we have the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And at the state level, we have what you've heard is House Bill 99. The sources I'm citing on the federal level is the OSBA Facts in a Flash, July 2022. Folks, I hope you've noticed that I've used a variety of sources in reporting to these things, and I would encourage you, as you look for your own information, to do the same. Look at a few different things to vet your information, and I try to bring to you ones that I have found to be credible sources of information. It's hard to find in the world of the internet. There's so much, but how much is accurate? So here we go. In this particular publication, it's described to be a common sense bipartisan proposal to protect America's children, keep our schools safe, reduce the threat of violence across our country. It provides support for state crisis intervention orders in this particular way. It creates $750 million in funding for states for the following things. First, to create and administer laws to keep deadly weapons away from individuals who are determined by courts to be significant danger to themselves or others. There's detailed information legislation on that, how that's defined. It helps to support mental health courts, drug courts, veterans courts, extreme risk protection orders to have sufficient due process for the $750 million. In addition, it provides $250 million in funding for community-based violence prevention initiatives. So a significant amount of funding here for these types of state and local programs. It provides protection for victims of domestic violence. In this way, it adds convicted abusers in dating relationships to the National Instant Criminal Background Check Systems. It wasn't there before for dating relationships. And it also provides a 5-year removal process from the system of those individuals only if there are no intervening prohibited crimes or similar offenses. Provides clarified definition of federally licensed firearms dealers. So it clarifies which sellers need to register, conduct background checks, and keep appropriate records. And it cracks down on those who criminally evade license requirements. It provides under 21 years of age enhanced review processes. So it requires an investigative period to review juvenile and mental health records with state databases and law enforcement for buyers under 21. If you take a look, a lot of the school shootings, they were under 21 criminals. I should say that not criminals that did the criminal act. They weren't necessarily all criminals prior, but I'm trying to say there. It provides funding to the FBI to administer new process checks in NICS and grants to help states upgrade criminal and mental health records. So in order to have these great databases of information you can access and make good decisions from, it's as good and accurate as the data in it. So it recognizes those things need to be updated in systems, provides some investment for that. It invests in the children and family mental health services. So it expands Medicaid demonstration programs to all states to increase access to community-based behavioral health services. It helps states implement, enhance, and expand school-based mental health programs under Medicare through updated guidance technology and grant planning. It improves oversight and access of Medicaid's early and periodic screening, diagnostic, and treatment benefits to children through telemental health care services. It provides $60 million over 5 years for training mental health for primary care clinicians who treat children and youth. It appropriates $120 million over 4 years to train community members and first responders on how to appropriately and safely respond to individuals with mental health disorders. It appropriates $240 million over 4 years to provide mental health awareness programs to school children, school personnel, and other adults who interact with school-aged children to detect and respond to mental health issues and connect their families to those services. It appropriates $40 million over 4 years to improve treatment for victims after a traumatic event. It appropriates $150 million to support the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for 24/7 free and confidential support. How many even knew that it was 988 for that? So certainly a lot is needed to educate everybody on that resource. It increases fundings directly to schools in this way, provides $500 million in grants. You got to apply for grants. Okay, so folks, just know it's not automatically handed to you. You apply for the grant to increase the number of qualified mental health service providers to school districts with the demonstrated need. So we can apply for the grant, but without meeting the definition of the demonstrated need, might not be approved for that. But it's used to train and diversify the pipeline of school counselors, social workers, and psychologists in schools. It provides $1 billion through Title IX-A to support activities to improve conditions for learning and developing positive school climates. Provides another $50 million to the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program to fund extracurricular, after school, and summer programs with the focus on new funding to target programs for older youth. $300 million to schools to institute safety measures, support violence prevention efforts. Very interesting last key point here. However, the federal legislation prohibits the use of funds to train or equip any person with dangerous weapons in school. Before I move on, the point that I want to make there is nationally through the news, you've kind of heard two schools of thought that are just specific to managing the use of weapons itself in these particular instances. And one we commonly heard is limiting access of firearms to potential criminals to protect the innocent from being victims of a gun assault. You've seen some of that in the federal legislation here. Second school of thought that's been discussed in media is to provide access of firearms to the innocent so that they can protect themselves from being a victim of a gun assault. There's two different schools of thought on that. With that, let's go on to the state's response in House Bill 99. So my sources cited here, I did a phone interview with our OSBA legislative correspondent, and I also took information from a Spectrum One news report. So from that, it allows school staff to carry firearms into the school. want to point out that for many years, Ohio has allowed school staff to carry firearms if it's approved by the school board. So that particular piece isn't new. And I want to assure everyone that House Bill 99 does not require schools to allow armed staff programs. It still requires the local school board. And I think there's been a misconception about that. Wanted to bring that information to everybody. In this particular legislation, it reduces the number of training hours from 700 plus to 24 in an effort to reduce hundreds of hours of curriculum the current legislators believed were irrelevant to school safety. It also includes an annual renewal process. Local school boards can require additional training. It's just not required beyond that at the state level in the number of hours. But what the state does require in your hours is it must include first aid training, a history of school shootings, and 4 hours of scenario-based training. It also created state-level instruction for school safety, and it created the Ohio Mobile Training Teams, which provides training for armed staff and helps to develop emergency management plans. So that's the general information of the federal level legislative response, the state of Ohio's legislative response. If you have questions, you can go to the General Assembly website, the federal website on the federal level. This keeps changing, but as of right now, we're under Congressman Jim Jordan's division. In the middle of putting this together, we had switched to Marcy Kaptur, and the state Supreme Court has now kicked that back. So here's where we're at right now. Congressman Jim Jordan and Senators Sherrod Brown and Senator Rob Portman on the federal level. Questions, comments, et cetera, on the state level. Our senator is Bill Reineke, and our state representative is Gary Click. So I hope that gives you a highlight of what's in the legislation. It's awfully long to read, so try to simplify it a little bit for you and give you a direction of where to communicate your questions and concerns to on that. So that's all I have for this evening, and we'll have Mr. Detweiler follow up with the local response.
Right now? Okay.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, Board, I have been thinking about this a lot, been reading a lot, and actually talked to several of you individually. I would like to make a recommendation that this fall we add an SRO. I don't have a person to hire yet. That'll come across your desk, but it's going to be my recommendation to the board that we have another SRO. We currently have two. We have one sheriff's deputy and one police officer. I think a third one is the way to go. I think we need to do something. And I'm going to share my own personal thoughts on the arming staff. I'm not a real fan of that. And here's why I often tell parents who ask about that, or anyone who asks. When a police officer comes into our buildings, no one thinks a thing of it. I mean, no one. It is the most normal thing in the world to have a police officer with a live loaded gun on their hip in our hallways as much as it is a math teacher. And to me, the difference is the training, the experience, and what even that individual wants to do with their life. I think most teachers who go into teaching, that's really not what they want to do. And also, I think introducing weapons into a situation without that kind of training, without that kind of respect in the community, is just not something I would recommend. So I'm going to kind of move. I don't have anything, like I said, I don't have anything for you this evening because I don't have a personnel, but I have been in touch with the local first responders, and we're working on trying to have a plan to move forward. Several options there. We don't really know kind of which way to go and where there's staffing issues on that end too. All those agencies are working on staffing issues. So there's some, unfortunately, challenges to finding qualified personnel. But before school starts, that's my intention, is to bring to you a proposal for a third SRO for our district.
Okay. All right. Well, Chantel, thank you for the information, for finding that out for us, presenting that tonight. John, thanks for your recommendation, or as of right now. So
Yeah.
Definitely look forward to seeing how that plays out, and hopefully be able to come up with someone for that.
Absolutely.
I think we've talked enough about it that we're all in agreement that that's kind of a good way to go for right now, especially. We have new schools, so the security, entrance, all that kind of stuff, we're not needing to upgrade school buildings at this point with those funds that may be coming down the line. So I think
That's a good-
personnel involved is a good way to.
Yeah, such a great point, Mr. Price,
Yes.
that, and I think you remember this conversation, but as we designed all 5 of our new buildings, we had first responders there at many, many of those meetings. It seemed like every meeting, if you remember, when we were designing the elementaries, we just had another school shooting.
Right.
The Parkland, Florida shooting had just
Right.
happened. So we talked about it tremendously. We talked about line of sight and approach to the building and things to hide behind. And there's all those conversations happen. So I do believe we have really well thought out, with cooperation of our first responders, built buildings that are safe without feeling like super security prison type situation. So I think we have good schools. So I think this might be that best way to respond with this sort of support is with an SRO.
John, I think it's important for the community to know that your recommendation was formulated with the assistance of local law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
in-depth discussion with
Absolutely.
them.
Matter of fact, I have a safety meeting this week with the mayor and the police chief and everybody else. So it's an ongoing conversation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both for that. Moving on to the community portion of the agenda. First hearing of the public. If anyone would like to address the board, however, we just have staff members in our room, so I think we're good there. So we'll move on to that. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
All right, this is a work session, board, and I'd like to sort of present the experts. We have, for you next meeting, you're going to approve, with your approval, we'll roll out our graduation seals. They've been updated, that's because it's a couple years coming, right, that this has been kind of in the works, and we've eased into it, but there's a couple more notches added this year. But we brought the experts. Actually, Ms. Orvitz has been front line and center, making this all happen at Ross for a couple of years. So certainly appropriate that she's here, and obviously Denise is kind of in charge of all of that. So if I'm going to just turn that over and let them sort of start their program, we'll need the clicker to do that. I'm going to have them remain seated too, so their microphones, so that people at home can see them or hear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Detweiler. Good evening, board members, Mr. Detweiler, Ms. Parkhurst. Thanks for the opportunity this evening to share some information with you. And as Mr. Detweiler said, I have brought our high school expert to be with me on this conversation this evening. She and I have worked very closely in the last couple of years as the graduation requirements have continued to evolve and change in the state of Ohio. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, I had 3 children graduate from high school within a 5-year period, 2016, 2018, and 2021. All 3 of them had different graduation requirements to get out the door as a high school senior in the state of Ohio. So this truly has been a major evolution in the last several years. And what we are seeing currently is for our graduating class of 2023 and beyond is what is being shared. And so that's the piece that we're going to highlight with you this evening. And we'll highlight a little bit of some of those changes. So some pieces will sound familiar to you. And we want to make sure that you have knowledge of those seals, which will be that new mandatory piece for our incoming seniors of this year, our graduating class of 2023.
Denise, if I may, too, just point out the challenge for counselors. You can imagine the high school counselor who's seeing now, well, and Ms. Orvitz, that you're seeing 3 different standards inside 4 class years. So 9th grade to 12th grade, there'd be 3 different versions of what it takes to graduate. You got to make sure you're talking to the right kid at the right time. You can have a real mess. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. So as the assistant principal in the building, Mrs. Orvitz has ran point on this for the last several years. So when we talk about those individual graduation plans, I can wholeheartedly stand in front of you and tell you she knows all of our graduates. It is no exaggeration for Mr. Detweiler or I to look at her and say, well, tell us about and choose a student. And I'm going to tell you 9 out of 10 times she knows what that student's path is, how they're going to get out the door of Ross High School, what they still need, what's on their plate, and they still have to get covered, and what we've done. So it's been integral for us as a district to have her in that position, and then for her now to move into the principal role and bring all of that knowledge, working knowledge with her. We're very, very excited about. So we are going to walk through with you. And first, like I said, we're going to talk about those graduating class requirements for 2023 and beyond. And she and I are both going to just kind of back and forth. So the first key, there are 3 key components for our graduates. Then they must now, in order to graduate in the state of Ohio, they must be able to make all 3. So the first piece, and I'm going to go over it at a larger level, and then Mrs. Orvetz is going to tell us a little bit more about the specifics and the reality of what it looks like at Ross High School. So the first component is that our seniors must earn all of their credits. In the state of Ohio, it is a minimum of 20 credits to graduate in the state of Ohio. Ross High School takes more to be a little giant. You have to graduate with 21 and a half credits. Our students, that's the first component. You have to cover the coursework and earn your credits. The second piece is that you have to demonstrate competency. Just doesn't mean that you have to take the high school course and have a passing grade and earn the credit. You have to have bare competency in 2 components. Now, you've heard us talk in the past about those end of course state level tests that our students begin taking as soon as they're entering into high school in freshman year, sometimes our 8th graders, and they have multiple opportunities. We test every spring, we have retakes in the summer, and we have retakes in the month of December. So we have multiple opportunities all 4 years for our students to earn those qualifying competencies for those tests. That is another piece that has evolved. There are still 7 end of course assessments on the books in the state of Ohio. Some of those, the district is mandated to provide to the child. Some of them, the student must participate in at least once. Some of them they have to retake if they don't earn a qualifying score. So again, it's all a jigsaw puzzle that we have to have all the pieces in front of us. Currently, for this graduating class of 23 and beyond, they will be exposed to every test, all 7 of those end of course tests, but the 2 that count for them that they have to demonstrate competency is English 2, which is typically taken their sophomore year, and Algebra 1, which is typically taken freshman year. Now, you'll see that competency / proficiency, the proficiency score is a 700. The law indicates that the student may show competency with a 684. And not the 700 of proficiency. If not all students are test takers and do well on those end of course tests. So our students do have a few other alternative pathways they can provide and demonstrate that competency. Do you want to talk about what those look like?
Sure. The first one just always makes me chuckle because if you couldn't pass the ELA 2 or the Algebra 1 end of course, then you can take a college course in those same areas and pass that, and then you can get the credit to graduate. We don't usually have any takers on that pathway. The second one is our, it's like our piece de resistance. You can have a 1-year or 2-year program at Vanguard Sentinel, which is called the alternative pathway. Allows the students to earn what's called an industrial credential, or points towards the industrial credential. If they are in the 2-year program, they typically go in their junior year. They are not credit deficient, and they are able to focus mostly on their labs. We have a lot of kids who have a lot of success with that. The other program is through Vanguard Sentinel, through the adult ed program called Bronze, which is a 1-year program for students who are credit deficient. And then there's 3 labs specific there that they can go through to earn their industrial credential there, as well as make up their credit deficiencies through their program. So again, Vanguard is a huge part of our graduation pathway, a true and resource. So we're very lucky. And then the third one is to enlist in the military. Now, again, students, we had a couple this year. They're like, well, I'm joining the military. I don't have to pass. No, you still have to complete your credits. They kind of got lost in that, oh, I'm just going to join the military. I don't have to do it. But the 21 and a half credits is still necessary
You can do the 21 and a half credits and get your paperwork signed through the military, and then you can go and use that as your graduation pathway. But without the 21 and a half credits, you're not going to be able to graduate, and then therefore the military is not going to accept you. So we had a couple disappointing people this year because of that.
The other component that I will add in enlisting in the military is a viable option. All branches of our government militaries have entrance exams as well. And in order for a student to embark on that pathway, they have to be able to pass those entrance exams and work with the military in that capacity as well. So they're still looking at a certain academic level. But it is an alternative pathway if our students are not reaching that competency level, the 684 score on the ELA2 or Algebra 1 test. The third key component, so now just to reiterate, that graduating senior has to have all three components in order to be a senior and in order to graduate. The third one is they have to demonstrate readiness. And this is the component that has been available for our students. It has kind of weaned itself in for the last couple of years. We first talked about the biliteracy seal, then we had the Ohio Means Jobs seal that became available for our students. So in the last year and a half now, we have developed the seals. There are state seals and local seals. And here's listed for you. And I apologize. In your packet, you have Ms. Heinlein provided for you two handouts. So the second handout that has a seal summary. This was created by our very own and wonderful Mr. Bill Shell, ninth grade high school counselor. And we actually use this often with our students and our families because it's very concise. So all of our students, beginning in their freshman year, we initiate those conversations of which two seals would you like to choose to work on? Because in 3 years, 4 years, 2 years down the road upon graduation, you must have a minimum of 2 of these seals under your belt. Now, a student can choose to graduate with 2 state seals, or they can have 1 state seal, 1 local seal, but they cannot have 2 local seals. And then on this handout, which we share with all of our students and families, it details for our students what that looks like and what you need to obtain that seal. So some of them are easier than others. Some of them, if you are a very academic student and you are doing well on those end of course tests, or you do have a college credit level course that you're substituting in for that score, you may earn that science seal or that citizenship seal very easily. But then there are other options. Now, the 3 local seals were available in law and outlined and described briefly in the law. Every local district had the opportunity to choose 1, 2, 3 seals. In Fremont, again, we usually do a little bit more to be a good little giant. So our committee decided that we were going to have all 3 seal options for our students. And so again, you can see on there what the committee has decided it takes to earn that community service seal or that student engagement or that fine arts. And again, all of these items are things that we are encouraging. We're having conversation with our students upon entry to high school. So our freshmen this year had numerous conversations about what seal path that they would like to be on in order to be ready to graduate at the end. Now, sometimes it's a challenge to get a 9th grader to think about graduation. But we do have our counselors in our into our high school English classes once each semester. So we make sure that we're constantly hitting those pieces. We have parent nights, newsletter articles,
Grade level meetings.
and continue to have those pieces. I just wanted to give you who was involved in this initial committee that designed those local seals. So we had some people from my department, we had some people from the building, looked at what items we wanted to be able to pull together so that we were set with our offerings for our students. So 3 key components: must demonstrate competency, must earn their course credits, and must have at least 2 seals to graduate. The other piece that I would like to just spend a minute on that the law talks about is every student grades 9 through 12 must now have a graduation plan. We were a little ahead on that, and we had initiated some conversation before knowing that that was going to come in the law. So this would be a piece that every one of our high school students has a plan in place. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
So what I do with the seniors is starting in the beginning of August, when I would come back to the building, I would have meetings set up with the student and the parent. I always want to invite the parent. I always want the parent to be involved, but sometimes the students will come by themselves. Sometimes they'll choose to come by themselves if they're 18, which is fine. But we go through what exactly does that 21 and a half credits start looking like. I give them a copy of their transcript and we show them, this is what you did in freshman year. This is what you did sophomore year, junior year, senior year. ACT scores are on there, attendance is on there, GPA is on there. So all that information is important. And I always try to emphasize every decision you have made since your first day of walking into Ross affects graduation. Always has some kind of impact on graduation. I like to have those conversations earlier than senior year. I think that's something that we really need to focus on. At this point, no student should say, I don't know what a graduation seal is. I think we talked about it enough that they at least know that they're around. Whether they think they're animals or something, I'm not sure, but that they are something that exists. So the next point is we would go through, you have to have your 4 years of English, your 4 years of math, your 3 years of science, including your advanced science class, and then your 3 years of social studies. And then which categories you have to have. You have to have Algebra 2, you have to have world history, you have to have that advanced science. So all of those things come together. Same with the mandatory electives. You have to have health, Little Giant Pathway, your PE courses, and your fine art courses. So some kids are able to bundle those up. I'm in marching band. Okay, you got PE and you got fine arts, so you're good there. So there are some things that can be combined, but then the students go through all of it, and this is what you need for senior year. Our goal is to have every senior need English 12 and Math 12. That is our ideal. This is what you have because you did everything ahead of time. Then you know what? You can have your wood shop. You could have your extra band classes, or you really like math and you want to take
Trig.
Yay. Then go for it.
I don't know why.
Some people. So, you can load up on the things that you really like or the things that you want to have. I met with a junior last year and she's like, okay, I'm going to take stats and trig because I think I need that for college, but I want to take personal finance as my elective because I think that that's something I need to know in life. Perfect. Do it because you have that opportunity to have more of a variety because you have all your other requirements completed. So the goal is have the counselors keep going into the rooms, but really enforcing everything you do goes towards graduation. The easier you want graduation to come, the more work you do now. Okay, so it's all like front loading. Let's do it. And then, oh, you know what? Things can get a little easier. I can get that job. I can do work community service. I can do the extras that I want to do. So we sit down, we talk about that. We have a form, we all sign it, and then we file it away. I give them a copy. And then we come back again because, somebody has a question or they want a review or they aren't sure because he's little Christine is failing English 12. What are we going to do? Okay, well, how do we fix this? All right, so what can we do to salvage it? Because you can't afford to fail English 12. So those kinds of conversations go on. And then I typically just kept a file, just kept adding to the file for each student, because what I don't believe ever is that any parent and any student should ever be surprised at the end. So know your information ahead of time. A student came in a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and said, well, I didn't know I had to do this. I'm like, really? Really? You're really going to tell me that in front of your mother? Because guess what I'm going to tell you in front of your mother? You had this meeting, you had this meeting, you had this meeting. Why are you going to tell me that you didn't know? It's like, yeah, I guess I did know. Yeah, you know. So, but getting that information out, I think, is really, really important. So that is one of the things I want to get started once we get back into the swing of things. So.
Wonderful. Both of the handouts that I shared with you this evening are available on our website under Ross High School. There's a PowerPoint there. There's information shared on our website, as well as, like we've said, we meet with parents, students on a regular basis. This is a piece that we've really been hitting them with, just so that we can be proactive and continue that graduation success at Fremont Ross High School. Any questions this evening?
I have one comment and one question.
Absolutely.
Did you say that it's now part of the law that they have to have a graduation plan?
Yes.
So I was probably spoiled. We've all been spoiled. Most of us went to Fremont City Schools, and we've had a history of a very mindful, caring education staff that made sure, our kids graduated and met all the requirements. Is it really just now part of the law?
I want to say about 2 years. I want to say that it came into effect for our freshmen who entered
2 years ago.
Yeah, July 1 of 20, that came in there.
So we've just been very blessed in our district that the concept of having that is just part of educating our kids, because I'm going back to when I walked the halls and thinking, gosh, as a freshman, we absolutely sat down and took a look at what does it take to get me to a senior and,
Had
on
the
as an adult.
checklist, and you went through those credits, and
That's very telling that had to be part of a law and only recent. I think that's enlightening of maybe overall and what might be happening in some other areas, and we're kind of lucky here. We take for granted things.
I think that's absolutely true. I think it also is a little bit of reflection of just that it got more complicated. I mean, I think when you were just counting credits, and in credits maybe in areas that was a little simpler to track, because now it's just gotten a little hairier to keep track of. So I bet legislatively they needed to respond to make sure that there was a written plan, because it is a little more complicated.
Okay.
So, but no, I think you're absolutely right.
starting this school year, according to that management plan that Mr. Detweiler is speaking to, we will have to enter information for our freshmen this fall as to what seal they think they may like to
Work toward.
achieve.
Yeah.
We have to enter that information into EMIS.
Right.
As freshmen.
Yes.
As
there's
freshmen.
There's two columns. One is which ones are you going to work to earn, and which ones are the ones you did earn. So right now, for the class of 23, I'm putting in what they have earned as of right now. They could still earn more as they go along, like fine arts, student engagement, all of those things. They need to get their fourth year in to get this seal, but they didn't have to identify what they were going to earn. But starting with freshmen, you have to.
And there's no limit as to how many seals a student could earn.
Correct.
So they must, mandated by law, they must earn the 2, but they could walk out at the end of the year with 7.
More.
Right.
I also want to say I really like and appreciate that you added to the local seals, because you can see it opens the door for diverse opportunities, the diversity we have in children's gifts and talents and all of that. So thank you.
For the community, and a little clarification, could you define student engagement, what that would mean or what that would look like for?
Absolutely. The student engagement seal, and I'll just refer to the sheet that you have, to determine that student eligibility to earn a student engagement diploma seal, the student must be able to answer yes to all of the questions. So they must have a cumulative 90% school attendance rate. So we're looking at their attendance. They have to be in attendance with us. At Ross High School through the end of the midterm of the fourth quarter of the student's senior year. So it's cumulative. The student must participate in 7 sports seasons and must be in attendance at 90% of the practices as confirmed by the coach and must be on the final roster submitted by the coach. So again, that's from freshman year to senior year. 7 sports seasons. And again, the committee really looked at that it's not, oh, I'm going to try out. You have to be part of the team. You have to participate in practices, games. Doesn't mean you have to be the star athlete, but you made the roster, you're participating, you're at practices, and you're on the final roster. So you didn't quit mid-season. Or the student can be involved in 3 clubs in lieu of a sports season. So maybe you're not an athletic student, but you're very involved in other ideas. We have several opportunities within the high school to participate in. So could be involved in 3 clubs in lieu of the sports season. And then if the student wanted to use all clubs to satisfy this requirement, they would need to participate in 21 clubs or activities over the course of their high school year. So that's 4 years. Students may combine both sport and club to equal the number required to earn the seal. For example, the student could be in 5 seasons of an approved sport and 6 approved clubs. This would be equivalent to the 7 sports seasons. So for that student engagement, we want them highly active and engaged at Ross High School. Not minimally involved, highly involved. And again, the committee that we pulled together when we did this, we hashed this out. This took several months of back and forth, and each of us were talking to other committees that we were on and bringing pieces back, but nowhere in there, although there's lots of opportunity, nowhere in there is there an easy out.
You can imagine your high achievers. I mean, there'll be some of our students that will knock these out.
Yeah.
Then they've got that for college applications, scholarship
Yes,
applications. Just another nice way to say, look, I was really involved. I was very successful. I was very successful in classroom and sports and everything else. So I think that part will be very fun to watch.
And when a student earns the seal upon graduation, there's actually a sticker, for lack of a better word. It appears to be an actual seal that is placed upon their diploma and then on their transcript.
It looks similar to what's on your paper. I mean, it's not exact, but it says science seal, citizenship seal around it.
The state has done, I think, its due diligence in making it a very real component for the students to demonstrate readiness.
And this information is on the website for parents to look at this.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Couple questions. One, a statement, the Vanguard, the Bronze program, sitting on the Vanguard Sentinel School Board. I agree, Ms. Orvetz. We are very lucky in what Vanguard Sentinel has provided, because when we, on that board, as we look at different career tech schools around the state, not even close to what Vanguard Sentinel provides in offering that Bronze program for those deficient students. Great way, to fit that in somewhere and make it more accessible for them. But 2 questions I had, and I think the one we talked about, and I saw it under the military enlistment seal, the junior ROTC program. And I think we talked about that in a curriculum meeting.
We did.
As not that Fremont has ever had that as a possibility, but if that's something that we could at least investigate and see, it could be, we have a lot of military families or former military that have their families, come back home to Fremont or something like that. I've had multiple cousins go through a junior ROTC program and absolutely loved it. And to have that as part of a seal there, I mean, it's just another way for a student. It's more accessible to meet these 2 seal requirements. I think it's definitely worth at least an investigation just to see what it would take. What kind of, and I know staffing is always an issue now for anything, especially if you're trying to do something new, but I think it would be something to work maybe at looking at. My other question is, so this is all through the state, and I know this probably comes up just because of when you talk about school choice programs, different schools that you can choose. This is required for every student, no matter what school they attend, or is this another one where it's our public school systems have to do this and other schools don't?
This is for all public education, chartered non-public,
Okay.
and I believe community schools also. If you're receiving the state diploma in the state of Ohio, you have to cover all three components.
Does that include parochial?
It does include parochial schools.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be those chartered non-publics that would be
Parochial goes under that.
all
Okay.
part of that,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. That's good to know because
It is.
we know that
It
there are
clears-
other
clears the
things that
game.
public schools get discriminated against where we have to do a whole lot more. And yet we're supposed to look like the bad guys and take the black eye for everybody. So I'm glad that at the state level, at least, they have said this is, if you're going to graduate in the state of Ohio,
Absolutely.
I don't care where you go to school, this is what you have to have. So that's a good thing.
And Mr. Price, I am happy to put that on my work plan for this year and begin some investigation into that.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
JROTC, yep.
Yeah,
We'll take a
just to
look.
see.
A follow-up on that, where do homeschools fall in that list? It's children who are homeschooled?
I don't
I am
think
not
they do.
positive.
That's my gut. I have to check for sure, Chantel. I don't think they have to do that. I also, as parochial school, you can opt out of any association, because we do have a local church school that does not have a high school diploma, Ohio high school sanctioned diploma. So there are some options. So I don't think all parochial schools, but all religious-based schools. I'm choosing my words carefully there.
Correct. And I guess, and I'm not positive about that aspect.
Yeah.
I can say that the chartered non-public schools,
Yes.
and there may be a
They have
difference
to.
within some religious entities that are private.
Truly private.
So
So would we decipher it this way? Those who receive a state of Ohio sealed diploma versus those who have to take a GED?
GED would be a different component
Be a
as
different
well.
pathway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going
Yeah.
to say, and I'm going from some years ago, because
Yeah.
I know of one school was similar. They had their own graduation, but to get the actual diploma, they had to take the GED
I think,
test.
and I think there are some church schools that I know of. I know specifically don't get an Ohio high school diploma.
so that was going to be my question.
And they
I
also
didn't
opt
even
out
know
of-
that was a thing.
Yeah.
You can actually do that.
They opt out of any federal funding, any federal rules, any local rules, and they just kind of do their own thing. And then I don't think then they would have to adhere to the.
See, and that's the rub. That's where I battle because I'm all for school choice. If I want my child to go to a certain school, I think I have the right as a parent to choose that. However, on the same thing, it needs to be a fair playing field. So to say that my child can go and not, if the state is going to legislate, I don't care if you take state funds, federal funds, or anything. If you live in the state of Ohio and you want your kid to graduate high school, if the state of Ohio says this is what the requirement is, then that's what it should be for all students. You're still a student. You need to be a productive member of society. That's why these are in place, to make you engaged and participate and help you with the education and the intelligence. To say that, well, and it's not a knock against homeschooling, because there are some great homeschooled kids and parents, absolutely. But if it's a state diploma, if it's a diploma for the state of Ohio, if it's a diploma for a child in the state of Ohio, we should all meet the same requirement. It's unfair the way it's setting it. It's like this. It never fails. We're not taking the money, but it's not about the money. It's about the educating of your kid. Can't it just be that? Ay. Sorry. That's my rant for tonight.
And I can double check that for you. I am very confident in saying public education, chartered non-public, and I'm pretty certain the community schools would fall underneath the public
that's
school
right.
entity
Having
as well.
Yeah, that's right.
meet
So
these requirements.
where I think we would potentially have the possibility of straying would be some of the chartered schools that are not community schools. And then if it is a religious sex school that is not chartered within the state of Ohio, which maybe would have that opportunity. but then they're not earning, I believe, an Ohio diploma.
That's what I think too, but we'll check.
But I'll double check it. I will. I'm
Thank you. Sorry to put so much
Absolutely.
on your plate.
You're fine.
My mouth gets me in trouble sometimes.
No worries. Any other questions this evening? I know we threw a lot of information out there, but very timely. And as Mr. Detweiler said, we're coming into the start of this new school year. I know that Mrs. Orvetz really hasn't stopped working and is gearing up to greet our students in the next month. And we really want to make sure that we're hitting the ground running. And we wanted to make sure that you were highly informed.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for the information. Ms. Orvetz, congratulations. We haven't seen you personally yet. Congratulations on your
Thank you.
new job.
Thank
and
you.
good job on your old job and moving on to
Thank you.
the next.
Yeah.
Very much. I
Exactly.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anything else for your report?
I do have just a couple things, some nice things. I'm going to brag a little bit on Corey Hall. Do you feel Corey is our groundskeeper? I got this in the school mail, and there was a note attached, and it's a calendar, and it said, Mr. Detweiler, check out Miss June. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got a girly calendar at school. And I thought, oh, am I watching? Right? But it's called Fields of Excellence, and it's put out by Pioneer Athletics, which are manufacturers of athletic field paint, chalk, things you would need to upgrade fields. And every calendar month is another athletic field all over the country. Here's Louisville, Kentucky, Plymouth, Wisconsin, Lincoln, Nebraska, Lancaster, Ohio, Houston, Texas, and Miss June is Fremont, Ohio. So Corey has done such a fabulous job. He's got some national recognition for the quality of our field. So I just wanted to show you Miss June here. And it's a beautiful shot of home plate on our varsity baseball field, and he does a great job with the FR and just takes a lot of pride in how our fields look. So shout out to Corey Hall for getting some recognition for his exceptional
Is
work.
Corey going to pose as Miss June?
Let's not go there. I try not to get in trouble already. Right. Let's see. Then just one last thing, and I think it's timely, Mr. Price, maybe after your rant. I put at each one of your places this Vouchers Hurt Ohio thing. We've been talking about this even individually with several of you now for about a year, and I've held off because it costs a little bit of money. But what this is an organization in Ohio that is actually kind of taking on the constitutionality of our funding of public schools. So you may be getting alerts in the mail or in your email. I think if you were signed up, I think OSBA may have forwarded those to you. But this is an organization that has several hundred schools in the state that have joined with a contribution to partnership and sort of leading the constitutional check of some of the voucher programs and vouchers legislation that's coming out of the state in Columbus. So what I'd like you to do is maybe look at this, and there's a website there you see at the bottom. If you want to check that out, I'd like to bring this on the agenda next month. It's $2 a student or $3,000, whichever is less. So it's a $3,000 contribution, but it'd be we'd be joining a coalition of schools that are fighting to preserve funding source for public schools and kind of put down the voucher program that it seems to be taking over the country. So just wanted to put that out for your thought and also maybe for your consideration at our next meeting.
So the $3,000, is that capped at $3,000 regardless of the course and length of time the initiative takes?
It's an annual membership, as I understand it.
Okay.
I'll check on that, Shanta. I believe that's
And
right.
I'll look, but I'm assuming on the website we'll be able to see the other lists.
Yes.
Will we see a list of districts that are
Yes.
currently?
Yes. Yep. And that last paragraph there shows it's $2 per student or $3,000, whichever is less. So just want you to maybe check that out. If you have any questions, you can call me, but I've been considering that for a while. I'd like to just bring it to your attention for your consideration. So
Okay.
Nothing we need to work on this evening.
Okay.
All right. Just last thing then, you see the curbs in the parking lot. If you drive out that way tonight, you'll see the curbs are in for the bus exchange lot and also the student parent drop-off that comes in off of North Street. So we are close. Asphalt should be in next week if everything goes well and the weather holds. So pretty exciting time to see the end of our project. And be able to start school in a building that everyone will finish school in is going to be a first for us after a long time. So that's it, Mr. Price, if I may continue then with the agenda.
Yes, please.
All right. Under facilities and operations, the first section here are the second readings of some of the policies that we have brought to you last month. I'm going to stay on top of these legal things. So those are all second readings.
Can I get a motion to approve items 1 through 5, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
Okay.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray, and Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much.
Did you not say
Yes.
7 and 5? I'm sorry.
Yeah, already.
Okay.
She's reading.
All right. On the student and staff achievement, we have an appointment for Jennifer Kopchak. She will be at Krogan School. And item 7 then is a list of our supplemental duties. You can see now we have the head coaches in place. Now they're making recommendations for their staff. So as you look down through that list, you'll see football, soccer. I think that's it for that. On top, the next page then, we have a few status changes from our personnel department. Christine Orvetz is one of them. These are all due to either a check in years of experience or continued education.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve items 6 through 8, please?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Laird. Could I have a second?
That was Bloom.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any discussion?
It's actually second by Mrs. Ray.
It was?
Yeah.
All right. Second by Mrs. Ray. Any discussion?
I think Mrs. Bloom, you made the original one.
What's that? I did you say anything?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. I'm confused. All right. Ms. Laird, motion. We have Mrs. Ray as a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes. Motion's approved.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to report of the treasurer.
Good evening. I just have a couple things for tonight for approval of the board. First, we have the June financial end of fiscal 22 report, which I was happy to have ready and over and done with. Just to highlight a couple of things. As we've been seeing over this whole school year, ODE funding is down, but our purchase services is down as well due to that change in the school funding. And the purchase service is down much more, so we are still happy with that. Our public utilities, that were having that Nexus pipeline, we had a lot sitting in delinquent. And we were all excited because they finally came to a decision on it. And now we are, I think, 99% sure that Lorraine County is going to file an appeal. So that will hold us up again. So just an ongoing saga with that.
How many years is it now on that?
These 2 on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're heading into year 3.
But luckily, they're only paying us a small portion. So the likelihood of us having to pay them back is not
Right.
that good.
Right.
They did say potentially it could come back as them paying less than what is currently agreed upon, but most likely it won't go less. But you never know. Salary and benefits were up a little bit this year compared to last year. It looks a little bit higher, but it's due to how we offsetted some of the expenses out of different funds that we had available last year. Supplies was up about 50% this year, but that has to do a lot with moving into the new buildings and getting them all set up and ready to go. So we're hoping that that's just first year. But also we have inflation and all that other wonderful stuff coming down the pipeline. Just to go over some of our top funds, the ending balances for fiscal year 22, our classroom maintenance fund or building maintenance fund that we are L2 to put money into percentage of our funds so that we can maintain these new buildings was at 2.7 million. Our food service, which has been had to have general fund money put into it, and always ends pretty sad looking, was at 859,000 this year. It has a lot to do with how high our reimbursement has been and with all children not having to pay. And so the state was, or federal was funding us much higher. While that looks amazing with the higher costs and expenses, and not all children getting the junior or middle school and high school do have to pay for meals this year. But it is nice to have that kind of balance moving into a year with higher costs. So,
If I may, Megan, too, just something that you might hear out in the community is that big change. We've been a couple years with no one in the district buying lunch. So 6th through 12th grade will be back on the good old-fashioned free and reduced schedule. They can still apply, but there'll be a lot of shocked parents, unfortunately, this fall when they come back to school, and 6 through 12 will be having to pay for lunch.
So what methods of communication are you using
Yeah,
for
I
those
sent an alert
families?
today, as a matter of fact, and our phone lines blew
Yeah.
up. So I'm going to start sending some alerts, newsletters to the building principals and so forth. So we try to hit it. And now as everyone's starting to kind of gear up, we'll get in their heads that is coming. So we have less of a surprise.
In your
like,
message,
surprise.
did you explain that, with the change in the pandemic funding?
Yes, yeah.
Did you let them know that?
Probably not in a
think-
voicemail, but yeah, I'll get it out. And we got it on our website too. We'll try to make a little more information there.
I think you can't tell them enough
Enough.
the
You are still right.
reason why.
Right.
I think if they understand the funding that used to provide it for free
gone.
has gone, just like so many of the other pandemic-related
Yeah,
fundings.
it's not us, right? That's a good point.
so while we ended up the year pretty good, I would say. We didn't have a deficit spending. We did have some federal grants in there that helped us out. But we do have some challenges coming up for the next year. In fiscal year 22, our fuel costs doubled. They were just out of this world insane. And while, yes, we've seen a little bit of a decrease over the past month, I don't know that we'll ever get back down to where we were. Staffing is getting really difficult. I know Mrs. King is working very hard, but it's not as easily to find employees. So they're having to A, be creative, and B, unfortunately, we're having to hire people that are costing us more. And I know that's a challenge for every school district. You hear it all across Ohio. Fiscal year 23 marks the second year in the 2-year budget, and we expect to see continued changes in the educational budget. It's just, it is what it is. And House Bill 126 that passed and limits our ability to challenge any property values. We won't be able to do that anymore. And real estate taxes are what provide 66% of our revenue. So we've luckily not had to challenge that, but that is not going to be an option for us anymore. And then I just have a little bit of a highlight for food service. Last fiscal year 21 versus fiscal year 22. You can see our revenue is up $1 million from last year to this year. Our expenses only went up from 1.5 to 1.6. Last year we did not have a surplus. This year we had a $900,000 surplus. So our ending balance with a 46,000 compared to 854 is a great increase and much needed for that food service budget with all the stuff coming down.
I was gonna say, not to be a Debbie Downer, but next year when we do this, when we compare 22 to 23, that second
Yeah.
line of total expenses is going to
Yeah.
be much different.
Absolutely.
But I feel a lot more comfortable moving in with an 854 than 46,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will take whatever positive
That's
I
right.
can
Absolutely.
get. So if I could get your approval on the financial report tonight.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve item 9, please?
So moved.
Motion by
Oh, sorry.
Mrs. Ray.
Yeah.
We'll do second by Miss Laird.
Okay. No, second. Okay.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
and Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved.
Okay, and then I also have item 10 on tonight, the resolution to proceed with the proposition of a income tax renewal. This is just our renewal of what it's always been, no changes. It's the 1.25 income tax renewal.
All right.
After I get approval for this, the next step would be taking it to the Board of Elections so that we can have it on that November election or ballot.
Can I get a motion to approve item 10, please?
Go for it.
Come on, Vi, it's the last item on the agenda. Motion by Mrs. Ray.
Like it or not.
Can I have a second? Second by Miss Laird. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Laird,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom, Mr. Price.
Yes, motion's approved. All right, moving on to board member communications and information. Mrs. Bloom.
Well, thank you, Chantel, for the presentation and going over everything that the state and the federal are doing. Won't allow. And thank you, Denise and Ms. Orovets, for explaining the whole graduation and all the things that come with it. I just remember graduating and only needing 21 credits or 20 credits. And getting most of that my 10th grade year, so I just was done the rest of the year. So, but I think that's about it. Oh, and Vi, we're gonna miss you. And it's been great working with you for the last few months. So, congratulations and
Thank you.
take it easy.
I'll try.
All right, Miss Laird.
Thank you for the presentation and just the great care that you provide our children with. They really are in good hands, and it's so appreciated. And I appreciate these workshops in that the work you're doing and the why behind what's happening is available for families. And to take the time to come in the evening and break it down for everybody is very meaningful, very helpful. I've heard feedback from the community. You can do all the meetings you want. Not everybody has time to come, but with these being on video, I can't tell you the number of times I've had to go through our minutes. I get a question, I go through our minutes. Okay, check out the video on X date. The information's right there for you. So thank you for doing that. Much appreciated. And this one, I'm gonna try not to cry. I'm gonna share something a little bit personal when I say that our children are in good hands in Fremont. I met Mrs. Ray when I was 9 years old. And at the time, she was a social worker, not with our public schools, but with our local court systems. And in family court, a judge looked at me as a little girl and said, I'm going to send you someone. And in my house walked Mrs. Ray. She was my someone. So, I cannot tell you what a mentor she's been through my whole life. Not just in that difficult time, but my whole life. She reached out to me years later when I got hired into the banking system, and she congratulated me. She reached out through my mom when I got engaged. And in fact, she gave me usher cups that they had left over from an event that I could use. So when it came time when she put her name in the hat to serve as a school board member, no one knew more than I did what she's capable of for children and the lives that she's uplifted. You rescued me, Mrs. Ray, and I love you forever for it. And I've had a lump in my throat, honestly, from the first day I got to sit next to her as an adult woman, to sit with her and serve children and help uplift their lives has meant the world to me. So I wish you the best. And I know that we'll continue to stay in contact. So I am blessed. And I hope with all my heart, I am a successful reflection of what a kid who falls into circumstances they don't have control of can become when the right people who care about kids are made available to them. So I hope you're proud of me, because I sure appreciate you. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go next so that you can finish out the meeting. First of all, thank you, ladies, Chantel, Denise, Mrs. Orvetz. Thank you for the information provided for different laws based on security, based on education, all that stuff and everything that comes. The amount of information, I think, Ms. Orvetz, you said it the best, is you can't come into a meeting and say, I didn't know, because you're not looking very well if you missed it. Because I think this district does a great job of putting it out there, and I hope we continue to do that. So thank you for all that information. So, Mrs. Ray.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know you before you got to be on the school board. It has been a privilege and an honor to be on the school board with you, and I think probably the majority of our community can say in some way, shape, or form, they are connected to you somehow. Somewhere along the line with all the decade, I mean, I don't know how many decades it's been, but the decades that you've worked with families in this community, and you've stayed in this community, even though you've done so much more around the state and everywhere else, it still has been Fremont that has benefited from you for all the work that you've done. So the school board part has just been the last few years, but you've put in countless hours of work over the decades for families in our community. So thank you for that. And I know even though you're not going to be on the school board anymore, that's not going to stop, because you're not going to quit. You never will. So thank you very much for all that you've done for our community, not just for our school, but for our community. With that, I'll let you finish out.
Oh, I'm kind of speechless for once, but I would like to thank just the awesome presentations, and I can leave knowing, feeling just almost, hey, leave on the gosh, all this good stuff is still going on, but just that our kids are in good hands, our families are in good hands, just the best, and just reviewing the things that we're doing for our children, our students, our families. It's pretty exciting. So I can leave feeling very, very good about, positive about what's happening. And just the board, just the community, thank you for allowing me to serve our families, our students. That's been the highlight of my life. Working with children, working with families, and then it's kind of a culmination, exciting. I just feel privileged to have been served on our school board with such awesome people who care. And Chantel, it was so neat when I came in. I was the kid, and I had went to the board. It was like, I've done all this other stuff, but hey, this is a whole different. This is a different area that I'm not really familiar with. I attended board meetings, but it's different when you're making decisions that affect all of the students. And so thank you for just all the mentoring. When I came in, I said, I'm going to need mentoring. So you had an opportunity to give back to me, and watching you, how you've just been a leader and being president, and just the caring, all the different areas that are so important to me. It's just been wonderful, and I know that our board will continue to serve. I'm really grateful that I've had a chance to be involved in so many special areas. Our schools, the building that I had my office in for 30 years when it was raised, and even Ross. So all the good things that was happening, the kids in the halls, the meetings, the principals, the teachers, the staff. It's just been an awesome experience working in the school and then being able to work for the school. So thank you for that opportunity. And thank you for being such awesome, awesome colleagues. And I hope if you need a body,
Always need a body by, might be teaching
if
special
you
ed
need a
before you know
body,
it.
once in a while you'll let me come in and babysit. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ray. Okay, I'm going to make a motion.
Could I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something, folks. I'm so sorry. Just when you're about to say something a little bit emotional, you kind of get your words mixed up a little. I wasn't in trouble as a 9-year-old.
No, she
I wasn't in the courts because I was in trouble. I just start thinking about that. I'm like, oh, that could.
Background check on
There
board
was
members.
trouble in my home, and the courts sent Mrs. Ray to rescue me. So.
And I wanted to clarify something too. I kind of had a touch with you. I loved, what is that called? It was Big Lots. Okay. And her mother was the first manager, and I loved going in there. It was all different from now, and we talked. But as far as all of the, I love you, but I had so many different families and so many different children over all the years. I didn't, focus. I focused at that time on whoever I was working with, but, when I met you, it was on a different level.
Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely.
You remember, but I did.
You've helped hundreds, but that's how you've made each one of us feel.
Hopefully, yes,
We were the ones, so yes.
thousands.
You helped my mom a great deal too.
I loved your mom.
All right. I'm going to make a motion for us to move into executive session under item B as in boy. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Just for the community to know, this is Mrs. Ray's last thing, so
Yes.
we're going to hang tight for a couple minutes because we are having a little, we have treats here for her and for all of us that are here. So public, if you didn't come, sorry, you're missing out. So before we move into executive session, we are going to be doing that. There will be no business done after we're out of executive session. So we will be in executive session then.